What was with those names? He told me I was an only child. Oh crap, we're rolling. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Nightmares of Nature. As always, I'm your host, Mr.G. Today, we're talking about creatures that, in my opinion, honestly kind of disgust me more than spiders. Why? Because, these things have so many legs that it kind of makes me uncomfortable. I am, of course, referring to centipedes and millipedes. Centipede refers to anything in the Chilopoda class. They're myriapods. They're carnivores. They were described in 1817, and they're found all throughout the world. Meanwhile, millipedes refers to anything in the Diplopoda class. They're also myriapods. They're herbivores. They were described in 1844, and they're also pretty found globally. Before we get into them individually, let's discuss some differences. For one, centipedes tend to have flatter bodies, while millipedes look more like tubes. Centipedes tend to be shorter on average and have fewer legs, while millipedes are longer with more legs. Centipedes are carnivores, millipedes are herbivores. Now, both of these animals actually have names that are kind of misleading. Centipedes have been found with fewer than or greater than 100 legs, but centipedes that have had exactly 100 legs are a very rare occurrence. And millipedes have never been found with 1,000 legs. The closest one was one that had over 700 legs. So, yeah. Okay, let's get started with centipedes. As stated before, centipedes have pretty flat bodies with their head on one end and a pair of tail-like legs on the other. Centipedes are carnivorous, with smaller ones just eating other invertebrates, while larger centipedes can take down and eat small mammals, birds, and reptiles, thanks to their strong venom. This venom is also a defense mechanism to warn off their predators, although most of the time they just run away. They are surprisingly fast considering how many legs they have to move. As for millipedes, they're a lot more docile due to being herbivores. Yes, I know they're dangerous herbivores, so don't even comment that, I was just saying. Millipedes are actually an example of herbivorous scavengers, since they usually only eat dead plants, only eating live ones if they're really desperate. Unlike centipedes, millipedes are very slow, and they don't have the same venomous pinchers. As such, their main defense mechanisms are either to roll up into a kind of ball, like one of their relatives, the pillbugs, or as children call them, roly-polies. And in subspecies, they can also release an irritating liquid from their skin capable of burning exoskeletons off of arthropods and capable of seriously irritating the eyes of vertebrate predators. Okay, we have now officially reached the topic of reproduction for these guys. Normally I don't talk about these kind of things, but with them it's kind of a mess, and I just want to talk about it because I do not want to be alone with this information. So if you don't want to hear this, then skip ahead till you no longer see this picture. Okay? Okay. Let's get into this. Now, millipedes actually have a pretty typical reproduction style, but centipedes have a very, interesting way of reproduction. Instead of copulation or external fertilization, male centipedes will instead sometimes deposit, basically a capsule full of sperm that the females will then insert into themselves in order to become impregnated. Ugh! Oh. Sometimes nature is disgusting. I cannot believe what I just mentioned, but if I have to live with this information, so do you. Okay, let's look at the cards before I have an aneurysm. Now, interestingly enough, there's only one centipede and one millipede in any of the series, both of them being the giant versions you can find in tropical areas. Like, there's no other centipedes or millipedes in Toxic Terrors or Tiny Terrors or anything like that. These are the only ones in the entire franchise. Now, as for the centipede card, there's nothing wrong with how they describe it. But, in the Did You Know fact on the back, it says there used to be centipedes the size of cars. They're clearly referring to Arthropleura when they say this, except that in recent years, it's been discovered that Arthropleura is actually a millipede, not a centipede. So, I'm deducting half a point for that. 9.5 out of 10. And on the millipede card, first of all, I love this coloration. Secondly, though, it claims that they create cyanide. Now, some species of millipedes actually do create cyanide. However, the giant millipedes are not one of them, so therefore, it doesn't belong here. 9 out of 10 for false attribution. Now let's talk about the relationships of humans. First of all, most people do not like centipedes at all. A lot of people consider them worse than spiders, including me, because centipedes have a lot more legs than spiders. And quite frankly, their legs are freaking uncanny to me. I don't know how to describe it. They're just terrifying. Now, centipede venom doesn't really cause a lot of deaths in humans. It is very irritating, but unless you're a small child or you have a compromised immune system, you should be fine if you're bitten by a centipede. Oh, also be careful if you are allergic to bees. For some reason, centipede venom is more deadly to those people. No one really knows why, considering that bees are insects and centipedes aren't. Then again, what causes allergies in general is kind of mysterious. Millipedes are a lot less hated, though, mostly because they don't really do anything to humans. Yeah, they can eat your vegetables, but remember, millipedes basically only eat stuff that's already rotten, so, you can do the math there. Although in some countries where it rains a lot, millipedes can be considered a threat because a lot of houses are made of wood, and when wood gets wet, it can rot, and you can do the math again. Obviously, they're not as bad as termites, but yeah, you don't want anything eating your wood. Centipedes and millipedes in some countries are also considered to have medicinal uses. Millipede venom is sometimes extracted for medicine, and centipedes are sometimes put into bottles of alcoholic beverages because it's thought that it'll make a medicine. Also, centipedes are sometimes fried and served on a stick. Finally, in some countries, millipede poison is put onto arrows to make poison arrows. Kind of like how some people in South America will use poison dart frog poison in order to make poison arrows. I've said poison too much, haven't I? Yes, I have. Sorry. Okay. That's all for this episode of Nightmares of Nature. Next time, we're looking at the Komodo dragon's little brothers. Bye!